And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. We are brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you've been struggling with too much chronic pain, which is probably because of too much inflammation in your body, check out the product that was created specifically to address that. It's a drug-free supplement created by physicians who can prescribe drugs, but they didn't want to just keep prescribing, painkillers that can mask the pain and then sometimes have side effects as well. They wanted to create something drug-free that would go right after the cause of that chronic pain, the inflammation in your joints. That something is Relief Factor. Now, it's not a panacea. We're not saying it's a cure-all. But over the years, over 1 million people have tried it, and 70% of them saw such great results, they stuck around with the product long-term. What did they try? The 3-week quick start. It's just $20 to see if you don't see a difference in pain in your joints in 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. It's just $20. Try it out at relieffactor.com. Might be the best gift you give yourself this holiday season. Also, want to remind you, this weekend is a big weekend in theaters. The film Bonhoeffer is hitting the screens, and we would love to see this movie, given its message, shock the movie industry, which could use a jolt over the last few weeks of disappointments. Pastor, Spy, Assassin. It's the latest from our friends over at Angel Pictures. I cannot wait to go see this movie this weekend myself. I specifically passed on the screener so that I would not give myself an excuse not to go and buy a ticket and go see it in the theater. So I'm going to go see it in the theater this weekend with the rest of you. Get your tickets today at angel.com/Steve, one of the most, I think, mercurial and important Christian figures of the 20th century, with a lot of lessons for us to learn here in the 21st. Angel.com/Steve. Again, head over to angel.com/Steve. All right, coming up on the show today, former gymnast for the U.S. women's national team, brand manager for Levi's Jeans. She's now the founder of the only athletic brand standing up for women's sports. Jennifer Sey is going to join us here at the bottom of this hour. Next hour for Idolatry or Not, I'm going to take a look at some of the various things that I've recently posted on X post-election. And are these things idolatrous, or maybe my reactions to them? Todd and Aaron, you guys are going to get to play referee on that. And then Pop Culture Tuesday, we're going to talk about the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight on Netflix, which had over 60 million households tune into that. It'll end up being the second most watched sporting event this year, other than the Super Bowl, looking at those numbers. Also want to give a quick shout out, if I could, to Rick Green and the folks over at Patriot Academy, and our friend and colleague Daniel Horowitz, who's been on me for 3 years to go out and do one of these events, and finally got a chance to go and do it this weekend. And just first class all the way. Great Patriots, great people. A lot of kind words for both you and Todd, Aaron, which of course had me questioning their taste, but nevertheless I tried to receive them as graciously as I possibly could, with a bitter taste in my mouth. But a lot of people came up to me. I mean, there were people from Alaska, New York, Wisconsin, all over the country. All over the country came to this. Oregon, Washington State. And I can't tell you how many people took me aside to say the impact our show has had on them from a faith perspective. And of course, we get into the cultural issues, the topical issues, but our prime directive on this show always has been, and as long as I'm behind the microphone, always will be, the biblical worldview. And so, that just absolutely warmed my heart to hear all of that. And thank you guys so much. And it was really refreshing and encouraging to me after a long, laborious election. We were up, we were down, we were down, we were up, we were down, up, down. Okay. This election, I know we've said this a lot in recent years. It feels like we aged in dog years with this election cycle, right? And so I needed a rest, and y'all down there at Patriot Academy gave it to me and recharged my battery, so I wanted to say thank you for that.
Did you shoot any guns?
I did not get a chance to shoot any guns, and I'm going to go back. Here's the thing. I wanted to make sure I was as available to people as I possibly could be. All right. And so they don't let you just walk up there and shoot no matter who you are. You have to go through their training and stuff on site for legal reasons and everything else. Right. Okay. Yeah. And so it was going to be a thing where either I was going to be able to mingle with the people, or I was going to have to take the intensive 2-day thing that they did and that would relegate me essentially into one group pretty much most of the weekend. And so, but they're building cottages and stuff down there. They've got a lot of different other things planned to basically make this a Liberty oasis there, deep in the heart of Texas. So I could definitely see in the not too distant future, Amy and I taking a weekend down there on our own, where we can just come down there and take the private lessons, and it's not a public event where, you know, I'm one of the hosts of the event. But met a lot of cool people, a lot of great questions. It was just, it was really cool. And then I got home last night, and Amy and Noah had decorated the house for Christmas and had everything lit up when I got home. And I mean, it was just really, it looked great. I mean, they even added to some of the stuff that we had, and it looked great. So I'm a very blessed man. I'm in a good mood today. I'm not even sure a non-con can break my mood today. I know they are going to try. But I don't think the great prophet Matthew Wilder, I don't think anything's going to break my stride today. I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good place right now. I'm everything zen right now. Todd, your thoughts? And
I didn't even realize until Aaron flicked the camera on, but we all wore our blue flannel.
I have different shades,
to apparently mimic your mood. So yeah, let's just roll with it.
All right, let's roll with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by World War III. Over the weekend, the Biden administration, apparently in an FU on their way out the door, authorized Ukraine for the first time to use U.S. long-range missiles to hit targets within Russia proper. This morning, we're being told Ukraine obliged and for the first time struck targets within Russia's Bryansk region using U.S.-made missiles. The missiles were attempting to strike a military installation. The Kremlin is making that claim, and Ukraine and the U.S. has not confirmed. Just a couple of months ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he would treat attacks within Russia proper using U.S. weapons as an act of war against Russia. We're also being told today Putin signed an act lowering the threshold needed to use his nuclear arsenal, making it easier for him to launch nukes against any country supported by a foreign power. Back at home, the Democrat-dominated Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled this week and reiterated that undated ballots or ballots with their dates missing will not be counted in the Senate election there. It comes after election officials in Bucks County and other counties in the Keystone State shirked the Supreme Court and continued to count illegal ballots. Republican Dave McCormick is facing a recount in his race against three-term incumbent Senator Bob Casey. Also in Pennsylvania, Senator John Vetterman says Democrats everywhere just need to take a chill pill.
Trump that gets the kind of thing. I mean, he gets the kind of thing that he wanted. You know, like the freak out and all of those things. And he hasn't even been. It's still not even Thanksgiving yet. And if we're having meltdowns, you know, every tweet or every appointment or all those things, I mean, it's going to be 4 years.
Amid the ongoing freakout over Trump's pick of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, the New York Times attempted to fact-check RFK Jr. on the issue of Fruit Loops. Here's what the Times said over the weekend, quote, Mr. Kennedy has singled out Fruit Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the U.S. version, but he was wrong. The ingredient list is roughly the same, although Canada's has natural colorings made from blueberries and carrots, while the U.S. product contains red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT, a lab-made chemical that is used for, quote, freshness, according to the ingredient label. Unintentional humor is the best humor. In completely unrelated news, the editor-in-chief of Scientific American has resigned after an expletive-laden election night rant on social media. Laura Hellmuth had a number of choice words for Trump supporters, including calling them bleeping fascists. Hellmuth became editor-in-chief of Scientific American in 2020. The magazine has yet to comment. Can't stop, won't stop update. Here's Jen Psaki on MSNBC saying, don't you dare cross the trannies.
There's obviously a lot of soul searching right now going on within the Democratic Party, and that's a good thing. But what I worry about is that in the course of all that soul searching, some Democrats might reach the wrong sweeping conclusions. And there are a lot of issues that fall into that bucket. But one in particular that stuck out to me is transgender rights. Another one of the lines that ran over and over again in those ads and throughout right-wing media is this idea that America is faced with a crisis of boys playing in girls' sports. Look, reflection is good, but if that were actually an issue at thousands of schools across the country, it would be worthy of a debate. But there are just incredibly few examples of transgender girls playing in youth sports. And when we see those examples, there isn't evidence that these kids are a threat to safety or fairness.
Since we last spoke, Trump named Caroline Leavitt as his White House spokeswoman. She served as assistant press secretary during the first Trump administration, was the second member of Gen Z to win a congressional primary when she ran for Congress in New Hampshire, and will be the youngest White House press secretary in American history. She's also gotten kicked off of CNN, so there's an automatic seal of approval. And finally, RFK Jr. breaks his silence on this photograph, which emerged over the weekend, sitting on Trump Force One with Elon Musk, Trump Jr., and Mike Johnson eating McDonald's.
The stuff that he eats is really like bad. It's not, campaign food is always bad, but the food that it goes onto that airplane is like just poison. It's all you have a choice between. You don't have the choice. You're either given KFC or Big Macs. That's like when you're lucky, and then the rest of the stuff is I consider kind of inedible, but I was eating it.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at PREBORN. If there's anything we learned from this election, it's how important it is to fight. We also learned how desperately the left wants to kill babies. They made it really the cornerstone of their entire election message. We also learned, though, how desperately behind we are on the pro-life side, which is why when we have ministries that have proven to be effective and know what they're doing and actually get results and not just a letterhead and media notoriety, we should be funding them. And that's exactly why we're doing that here at The Blaze and partnering with our friends over at PREBORN. And thankfully, you guys have been so generous, and that generosity has saved probably tens of thousands of babies that we at least know of. PREBORN, over the course of its history, has saved hundreds of thousands. Let's help them save tens and hundreds of thousands of more. I know a lot of you are thinking of making that end-of-year tax-deductible donation. I can't think of a better option than our friends at PREBORN. You know, for as little as $28, you can fund an ultrasound that could save a baby's life today. And then they're there when mom chooses life. They are there for her up to 2 years after the baby is born with prenatal, postnatal care, counseling, whatever she needs. All right. So this is essentially, this is the biblical model here of truth and grace in action, which is why we don't donate to it as well at the Deace household. All right. So go to preborn.com/Steve. Make your donation today. Preborn.com/Steve. Again, preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's since we've been apart for a few days, let's try to go through as much of what's in Aaron's montage here, little by little, as we can. Let's just go ahead here and take it from the top. All right, a couple of thoughts that I have had about what was announced with arming Ukraine with long-range missiles here over the weekend, and they are conflicting thoughts. And I can see evidence for both. So let me lay both options out to you guys and tell me what you think. All right. This is a placation. We gave them their long range missiles, but this is some of the weaker weaponry that we have. It's a token gesture to essentially keep up the appearance that we are still backing Zelensky before Trump takes over and tries to end the war swiftly. The other is the Satan just thinks January 20th is coming and I'm running out of time to start World War III. So let's get to it. Those are my two impulses of what happened here over the weekend. Which one of those two do you guys more side with? Aaron, I'll start with you.
Well, if you take the Kremlin's word for it, which I would not take the Kremlin's word for it very often. But
whose word on this would we take?
Nobody.
The war we've seen no footage of. I can get more footage of the Iran-Iraq 79 war on YouTube than I can of this war.
So that story kind of running down the 4 different developments over the weekend when it comes to this. I used the phrase, what phrase did I use 3 or 4 different times? We are being told. Mm-hmm. We are being told.
Correct.
Multiple times. So I'm hedging. But if you take the Kremlin's word for it, the former scenario that you just laid out there seems to be the most likely, because the Kremlin says this was attacking a military base within a very rural region. I can't remember. I used the term in the montage. I used the region in the montage, but a very rural region, a military installation. The Kremlin claims they shot down all these missiles, or most of the missiles. The ones that did reach the base, it started a fire. They quickly put it out, and there were no casualties. Mm-hmm. So if you take the Kremlin's word for it, it would seem the former scenario is actually probably more likely.
Okay. Todd, where are you at on this?
Yeah, I mean, this could cause maybe an actual war to start. I'm not World War III, because whatever this is, and I know there's been shooting and death, this hasn't been an actual war. This is total tail wags the dog stuff. This is a covert money laundering scheme of some kind in the reverse Wakanda.
With a whole bunch of citizens caught in the crossfire of it.
That now became more overt, but it's not been a war. This is not going to go suddenly to World War III. It might you might actually start getting a little footage, Steve. But come on, this is still something that I want to absolutely get to the bottom of, because this is truly one of the darkest holes in the entire world of what the hell.
What do we know more about? Math club shooters' motivations, or footage from the Ukraine war? What do we know more about? What is more to the average American at their fingertips with one of these bad boys? So the world is literally at their fingertips. Okay, if I turned this puppy on and went looking for something, would I be more likely to get current and active footage of the Ukraine war, or information about the true motivations of math club shooter from Bethel, Pennsylvania, July 13th?
I don't know if it was by accident or not, but you're actually talking about the same dark hole. It's not; those aren't two different dark holes.
Yes.
They're the same damn dark hole.
Yes. Aaron, where are you at on that question?
Probably Ukraine, just because it's been 2 years almost. I mean, how long has it been?
I think today's 1,000 days, isn't it?
1,000. Oh, yeah, that's the new CIA, isn't it? That's the new talking point.
Yes.
That, like every single lefty, 1,000 days, 1,000 days. So it's probably going to have to be Ukraine. But the point remains that who would you trust, and how would you go about? This is the problem we've had the entire time. How would you go about verifying any claims that are made about this? And you could say that about a lot of stories, but especially this one. It just, again, we're being told that a major power cannot accomplish their goals within 1,000 days against an entirely overmatched opponent. Something doesn't add up.
And for a story like that, as a journalist, to have that be a part of a notch on your bedpost, being in a war front.
How many Pulitzers are just left unwon because they weren't there covering this?
It was so important that Brian Williams kept lying about it.
Correct.
Okay, but now, honestly, that's why you don't need to go do that and see it anymore. You just need to have the damn flag on your Twitter bio and bitch and moan about things.
Not to mention, they've got these. The citizens over there have got one of these too, don't they?
Yes.
Okay. Nobody's like, the Russians are here. Where's this been since the opening days of the war? 1,000 days, and this is the most. Mitch McConnell. This is the most important issue. We don't know what he said next because he glitched out, okay? But we think he was talking about Ukraine, all right? And so where's all the information? Where's the daily drumbeat? Where has it been? We've given billions of dollars for something no one can get access to information about.
That's the only information we have, the amount of money we've spent on apparently.
The only thing we can itemize is the amount of money we've given to this. Yes. That is a great point again. All right, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, your thoughts, since Aaron already covered his angle on this, but your thoughts. My understanding, didn't they basically just disobey? This is the second time the Supreme Court has told them this, right? The first time they just went on counting, right?
The first time they said it before the election. That was a big win. I can't remember if I mentioned it in the montage or not, but it was a big win. Is that no? The Pennsylvania Supreme Court said no, you cannot count undated or ballots with misdated or undated ballots. You cannot do that. Bucks, I think, was the one that overtly said, their election commissioner overtly said, yeah, we're going to keep doing that anyway. And now the Supreme Court is saying,
that's Scott Pressler's county. That's where he basically lived for the last 2 years, flipping that county red.
And the Supreme Court came back and said, no, you're not, and reiterated their earlier issue.
Okay, and now the Democrats say they're going to appeal this, right? Okay, but to who? I hope this gets up to the Supreme Court, because they have been very reticent about getting involved in these election cases the last few years. The only one that they've directly invoked themselves into that I can recall is when Colorado earlier this year tried to take Trump off the ballot, and that was so egregious that, remember John Roberts, as an institutionalist, even had to step in and say, yeah, we that's literally how we're going to start shooting people. We can't do that. All right, but I hope it makes it actually up to them, because even if they don't overrule the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, but allow that opinion to stand, that'll at least be some formal action of limiting the conjuring of ballots than we have seen from SCOTUS during the last few years of all of these arguments about election integrity, Todd.
Here's my problem with this. There's an entire culture, and I'm kind of glad, to me at least, the honeymoon. We're 2 weeks post-election. The honeymoon feels over. Dances at football games notwithstanding. We need to be very sober about why this election was won, and it wasn't just to have dance moves. It was to stop this stuff, and this stuff is not going to stop itself, even in the face of Supreme Courts that tell them no. Forget Republican, Democrat getting back in any way, shape, or form. I'm just like, we have with school boards in Oregon. There's another story that they just flat out took teachers that were being investigated for sexually abusing students, and they didn't tell anybody, and they had them teaching the whole time. Whether it's school boards or these election commissions, consequences, folks. They're not threatened by being told no by a court or anything like that. They're criminals, Steve.
Agreed.
If they're in your face telling you, yeah, well, they're illegals, we're going to cut them anyways, why aren't they going to jail? The people on the school board are saying, yeah, we put a sex criminal back in the classroom. Why aren't they going to jail? We need to move beyond just the scolding of a court and say, well, we went a little too far this time. Jail. You're criminals.
I agree.
You're a mob.
And I hope Chris LaCivita is serious about that. Has he been named? I mean, he was one of the campaign managers for Donald Trump, but he said these people are going to jail. I hope he's serious about that.
So do I.
Because Todd is absolutely right. I mean, the athletes doing the Trump dance is not nothing. Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris, and now here we are 2 weeks after the election, and what's more mainstream? The Trump dance. Okay, that's not nothing, but at the same time, it means nothing if promises are not followed through on. It means nothing if people are not held accountable. It means nothing if Democrats, again, can just bald-faced come out and say, yeah, we're going to steal this election. What you going to do about them? How do you like them apples? You have to put an end to this. You have to make examples.
A lot of these athletes are saying things that, God, it's good. It feels different, right? It's good to be free again. You let yourself be slaves to these people. They're going to do it again.
Yes. The Democratic Party is the literal embodiment of that goofy meme. Okay, I'll effing do it again. They're the literal embodiment of it. They will effing do it again.
Yeah,
I promise you. Yes. It's been 2 years now, and I never thought I was going to say this 2 years ago. I just, we did this thing earlier this year where we did a power ranking of senators, and John Fetterman, I think, was 12th. That's how terrible the Senate is, by the way. Okay. I just say I just genuinely like John Fetterman. You talk about when you were at UW back in the day, just sitting around with Democrats over, beers at the student union, just going back and forth on issues. Then after you went and shot pool, then afterwards you went and sat in the student section at Badger football games, right? And screamed your. That's a throwback to an era that if you're Gen X, that we're kind of the tail end of that era, and then political correctness and everything else was coming in just as we were coming of age, and that era has kind of been gone since the mid '90s or so. I probably could not bring myself to vote for John Fetterman given we have some systemic issue differences, but I genuinely like the guy. I can share a country with him. I'd be happy to sit. I'd be happily tour the country having debates with John Fetterman about the significant issues of the day. Well, because I think an honest exchange would actually be had.
Well, I think the main reason is that say what you want about him. Say what you want about him. He genuinely, and he has a track record now of this going on about over a year since October 7th. He does not really give two wits about pissing off certain coalitions on his own side. He really doesn't.
And of course, I'm going to have a little respect for something like that.
Well, that's the kinship.
Yes.
So nobody on the left. I mean, still, there's no real pushback. There's asking questions about our side.
There's not a lot of contrarians on the left.
No. Your whole career is known as much for anything else as complaining about how stupid your side is. Mm-hmm. And that's what he spent a lot of his time doing. We're idiots. What's our problem?
Basically, Fetterman's like, why are we talking about trannies when we should be talking about why families don't have better paying jobs?
Yeah.
And that's how we used to kill Republicans in elections, when we talked about stuff like that, as opposed to the stuff that Jen Psaki wants us to keep talking about. I saw Christina Pushaw in Governor DeSantis' office, her reaction to that Psaki clip, Aaron, that you had, and I'll just quote her because it's my reaction. As a Republican, I hope she keeps doing that. I hope the Democrats take all of her advice. As an American, that is absolutely dreadful, however, for the country. Okay, just to completely double down and triple down and quadruple down. And I saw that you went after Mike Johnson for punting on Dude McBride, the new congressman-elect. Now, there is follow-up news that after that presser, okay, Mike Johnson did go in and told members of Congress behind closed doors that there is no way McBride is going into the women's restrooms, and that won't be allowed. Okay. Now, why not say that and declare that publicly when you're given the opportunity, when you're just going to, in 5 minutes, go behind closed doors and say that to the assembled members of Congress anyway? That's kind of peak Mike Johnson, I guess. All right. But I do think we should give the update that he has apparently told the members of Congress that Mr. McBride is not going to be spending time in the women's bathrooms of the U.S. House of Representatives. And
I'm reliably told they're having conversations like this, the Republican leadership in Iowa, because there's now similarly the first transgender individual up there. And they're, guys, there's nothing to discuss. You go into that bathroom, you're under arrest.
You know why they're in this position? Because right after they heard you and I last January testify on this on behalf of the Governor Kim Reynolds' bill on this, they took a look at the demonic gallery out there in the hallway, puckered, and never passed Kim Reynolds' bill. And now they're in this position now because they didn't do what she wanted them to do last year.
Now, but all your umbrage online as a non-con or anything like that, if you really care about this, laugh track notwithstanding, your school boards are full of people like Jen Psaki.
Correct.
They're going to continue to go on offense.
They are
while
legion.
Yes. You got to get active there.
Yeah, no doubt.
You have to.
No doubt. The New York Times cell phone thing. RFK Jr. is wrong. Okay, about the amount of chemicals. All right,
and now let's itemize how he's right.
But let's not itemize all the deadly ones that are out there killing people that Canadians don't have to eat. I just, how that gets even printed, and no one's like, I know unintentional cell phones are always the best, we like to say around here, but that went through how many editors before they were like, well, actually, we're going to do a better job of laying out RFK Jr.'s premise than even he did and call it a correction unintentionally. It just... And that's why legacy and corporate media is largely dead in America.
The flat earth gets worse the smarter you get.
Yes.
Because the perversions get all the worse. You can only get so diabolical if you're just dumb.
Correct.
These are smart people who believe in the worst flat earth ever.
Correct. And then we have to talk about the scientific. We're going to run out of time. But the Scientific American woman, we didn't, that was right at the tail end of the election. There was so much else going on when that story broke. We didn't have time to get into it. But when we talk about, we use the term captured institutions, okay? Science isn't a religion. Science is a process. Guys, science is a process. Science isn't a philosophy. Science is a process. It's a fact-finding process. It's an epistemological process of discovery. What's true, what's not. Okay? It's a process. That's what it is. And when we talk about captured institutions, when people intend to hijack said process for the advancement of their philosophy and ideology and then call it science, that's a captured institution. And that's exactly what's been going on at places like Scientific America. And that's why you saw everything you saw in 2020 and 2021 during COVID. Anti-vaxxers have a new scheme, natural immunity. You mean the thing that kept the human species going for eons before we ever had vaccines, when there were plagues a minute? That thing, natural immunity, the scheme, right? This is witchcraft. That's what this is. It's voodoo, okay? And this is always what you get when you politicize science. When you turn it into something more than it's just a process to seek out truth. That's it. What's true, what's real, what's possible, what's not. That's what it is. It's not a philosophy. It's not a religion. You were telling me about someone that Aaron, last week, who said he left Christianity behind and has discovered quantum physics as a substitute. He just found a new religion, the one he just made up. Folks, no institution works harder to give young people the best education in America than our favorite college, Hillsdale College. For 180 years now, Hillsdale's mission has been to develop the minds and improve the hearts of its students. And today, in just 30 seconds, you can learn a whole bunch about that mission when you go to daceforhillsdale.com. Use the preposition for, not the number, daceforhillsdale.com. Since 1844, Hillsdale's been focused on learning, character, and faith, and providing just the kind of education needed to preserve liberty. And they extend their mission nationwide through outreach efforts like their free digest of Liberty Imprimis. Too many colleges and universities today, they indoctrinate students into hating in America. But at Hillsdale, students learn how America became the freest and most prosperous nation in history. So at a time when many college campuses are rife with division, Hillsdale students sign an honor code too, promising to respect the rights of others and the right to self-government. So take some time to learn more about what makes Hillsdale College so unique, so special when you go to daceforhillsdale.com. Again, that's daceforhillsdale.com. Well, our theme on the show, you guys know, every year on the show, when we come back in January after Christmas break, we always come back with a theme for the year. And our theme for this year was Dominion. To control what you can control. Use this sphere of influence, and we all have one, even if it's just our own little Facebook page that our families and friends are on. We all have a sphere of influence where we can stand up for what we know is right and what we believe in and try to influence things from there. Jennifer Sey has done exactly that. She's a former gymnast for the U.S. women's national team, brand manager for Levi's Jeans. She's now the founder of the only athletic brand to stand up for women's sports, XXXY. And I want to start as we welcome Jennifer to the show here, and I lost it. Dang it. Here it is. Let me find it. There's something you tweeted, Jennifer, on the 18th. And I wanted to start with this tweet and just set it up for you and welcome to the Blaze and let you take it from here, all right? You tweeted on, or posted on X now. I got to get over the fact it's not called Twitter anymore. Earlier this year, when we were getting ready to launch XXXY Athletics, a modeling agency in Nashville pulled all the models we'd booked at the last minute, causing quite the scramble for us. They were made-up excuses. Model didn't have a babysitter, blah, blah, blah. But it was clear they didn't want to be associated with our message of protecting women's sports. Now we have no trouble booking models. We have a Broncos cheerleader and breakdancer and a world-class Taekwondo athlete and a pro golfer and models who just want to support the message. And athletes contact us every day seeing if they can work with us. We can't work with everyone who wants to work with us now. There's just too many. That's my story of the shifting cultural tides of the last 9 months. We have no trouble finding models now. And all it took was somebody like Jennifer's willingness to be that light shining in the darkness. And yeah, you take some heat for it at first, but if you hang around long enough, we always talk about courage is every bit as contagious as cowardice is. So with that, Jennifer, now we formally welcome you to the show and congratulations on the brand.
Thank you. I do. Oh boy, that's a lot to start with. Yeah, I just tweeted that last night, and I do want to warn against getting too complacent, which you were just talking about on the lead-in here. Because the left is not going to give up this fight. And I'll get to that in a second. I want to first start with having the courage to stand apart and do the right thing, which I think you and I have both observed over the course of history across eras and geographies. Most people don't do that. Most people would rather stand with the crowd, take comfort in the crowd, than stand apart and do the right thing. And I have, for some reason, made a habit of doing the opposite, which is not always the easiest path in one's life. I was an elite gymnast. As everybody now knows, the sport is rife with abuse, emotional, physical, and sexual. And I was the first gymnast to actually stand up and say that back in 2008. And that did not go particularly well for me. And it took a long time. It took 10 years for me to be redeemed and believed, essentially, by that community. And it took the arrest of Larry Nassar, the supposed doctor for Team USA, who abused over 500 athletes over the course of 30 years, going to prison for life. But again, truth did out in the end. So from my perspective, it was worth it to stand up for what was true and to stand up for children. And then I decided to do it again during COVID, advocated for open schools, basically lost my life as I knew it. I ended up leaving the city that I had loved for a very long time. I ended up leaving a job in a company that I had loved for a very long time, but that put me here. And I did start XXXY Athletics, and I do feel the shifting cultural tides. We all do. There's the dance. There's the example that I cited in that, not tweet, what are we calling it? A post?
Post now, yes.
Just yesterday. But I just would warn us all about getting complacent here and sort of declaring victory too soon. The left is not going to stop. They are really good, frankly, at influencing culture, and politics, legislation is all downstream from culture. And until the 90% of people or so that agree with us can stand up and say no boys and girls sports without fear of backlash, then we will keep fighting. And even after they've done it, we need to keep fighting. The left doesn't stop. They partner with companies and corporations, HRC. You know about HRC? I'm sure you do. The nonprofit that partners with corporations across America. That's why companies take the supposed stands that they do. That is how they influence and inform culture. They don't stop when they win. They just keep going.
Yeah, you're talking about the Human Rights Campaign, and my buddies over at the Babylon Bee are getting hit as we speak by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So, absolutely, yes.
Exactly. So we are just getting started. We are standing up for common sense, for truth, for women and girls, and I just keep warning everyone. I don't mean to be like a Debbie Downer, but I think we need to not get complacent.
If your message is don't get complacent, sister, you came to the right show. All right. We let people celebrate for about 10 minutes on November 6th. All right. They were like, that's enough of that now. All right. Maybe it was 15 because it's Christmas time. But in all seriousness, I have been pushing back on some of my friends and colleagues around the country on the whole Morning in America again motif. And as a Gen Xer, I get the nostalgia for it. I'm a Reagan 80s kid. I get it. But that was when we still had a shared social compact, a largely shared of values. Really, the fundamental disagreement that was going on at that particular time was over how aggressive to get with the Soviet Union. But by and large, if you went to Minnesota, the only state that voted for Walter Mondale, all right, you went anywhere to Minnesota in 1984 and said, "What do you think about men using the women's bathroom because they're transvestites?" Which is what they would have called them back then. And they would have looked at you like you needed killing. All right, and that was the state that voted for Mondale, let alone this becoming a nationwide cause celeb. I view it more as the culture war version of a Gettysburg. A massive battle here was won. They threw everything at us. They threw the Pickett's charge at us culturally, and we won. But if we don't take advantage of it from here, then it won't seem like a turning point. It'll seem like really a commercial break.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, Trump campaigned in part on this. The ad he ran, Kamala's for they, them, Trump is for you, was the most popular and I think an effective ad. I don't know that anybody would argue with that. I mean, the left would say that it was fear mongering, which is not true. It was speaking to actual reality. But I think it is worth noting that he can and will rescind the terrible rewrite of Title IX, which erases women's sex-based rights in the education system. But this is happening in sports well beyond the education system. I never competed as an elite gymnast, as a world-class gymnast in the school system. I competed in a private club in the Olympic movement. The USOPC is funded almost exclusively by private companies. The International Committee is funded almost exclusively by private companies. And we know the Olympics is just fine with having a male beat a woman up in the boxing ring and give him a gold medal at the Olympics. So, again, the cultural influence and the cultural push has to continue. The office of the president, frankly, only goes so far. And I think, it's the president, not the king. I think we're all on board with that, right? And so we need to influence the culture. And this is honestly what the left is so good at. And I say this, don't hate me, but as a longtime lefty who jumped ship, started questioning things in the late 2010s, and then COVID just sent me over the edge. And if you want to talk about, look, there's been no real redemption on the COVID side of things. I mean, no one campaigned on it. Nothing. There's been no mea culpa. There's been no we were wrong. There's been no we can't close schools again. Like I keep pushing on this one too because it could all happen again. It could all happen again. Now, of course, getting different folks placed in the administration, will be some bulwark against that, at least in the near term. But administrations change. So, we just need to keep pushing, I think, and really own the cultural conversation. I was the longtime Levi's brand CMO and brand president, and that is what we always talked about, being at the center of culture. And that's what we need to do, is put ourselves in this conversation at the center of culture, with the truth being the only cool thing to say.
I love that's a good word right there. How would you encourage people around the country, and even though you're a woman, especially the men. The men are a primary focus of our show, okay? And I've got friends in groups like Moms for Liberty. I just helped a member of Moms for Liberty get elected in my own legislature this year. But the reality is, I think if things were going well with the men, it would also be an unnecessary group. People wouldn't even be contemplating we needed Moms for Liberty because the men were doing their job. So what encouragement would you give to those in our audience, but especially the men, based on your experience of your willingness to push back, and now how you're beginning to come out on the other end of this? How would you encourage them?
Yeah, we need the men. That's why we make men's product at XXXY Athletics. We actually contemplated in the beginning not making men's, but we need the men to weigh in. We need men to stand up for their daughters and their sisters and their wives. We need them to be part of this conversation. Do you believe in truth or do you not? You cannot sit this one out. I met the founder of Moms for Liberty before she even founded it, Tiffany Justice, because we were two women from opposite sides of the aisle who saw the madness of closed schools. And it was primarily moms, honestly, that stood up during COVID and pushed back. And we could have used the dads in that fight. We need men in this fight with us. Real men support real women and girls. And you need to stop sitting this one out and sitting on the sidelines. Where my husband wears this T-shirt, which I'm showing you right now, or some other color variety to our daughter's soccer games every single weekend. And every single weekend it provokes a conversation. I live in Denver. It's very blue. 99% of the time that conversation is positive and people lean in and they say, I agree with you. And sometimes it's not, and they still have a good conversation, and they know that we're not going to be quiet. But it's amazing what it does if you wear the shirt and wear the hat. And this is what I am good at, influencing the culture. It gives validation to others to come out of the closet. As someone that supports the truth. Yep. So that's what I encourage people to do. If you've been afraid, start by supporting people who are speaking up and standing out, but don't be afraid anymore. We are the majority. We need you in this fight. We will not win without you. I say this to the men, to the dads, to the husbands. Stand up and stand with us. Wear the T-shirt, wear the hat.
Amen. All right, well, we've got about 3 minutes here. Let's do a little infomercial here. Tell us about the product. All right, go ahead and pick some of the swag. Let's hear about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, look, like I said, I worked at Levi's for 23 years. I know about a thing or two about making great product. We are the only athletic brand standing up for the protection of women's sports and spaces. We like to say we're the only brand that knows what a woman is. Why would you buy from another brand? All these athletic brands, they pretend to champion women. They profit off of pretending to champion women athletes, and they do no such thing. So it's time to buy brands that align with your values. It's time to vote with your dollars. You don't have to sacrifice your values for amazing quality. We really make incredible product. I mean, I'm wearing just a T-shirt, but we do everything: workout gear, moisture wicking fabrics, all that stuff, leggings, shorts, blah, blah, blah. Anything you want from one of your favorite brands, you can get it from us, and you can be confident that it is made ethically, it's outstanding product, and it's lined up with your values.
No problems getting vendors, manufacturers, textiles. You didn't guys have any supply chain issues with this product line?
That's a great question. I was very worried about that. Not just supply chain, but we're on Shopify, which is very common for most vendors at this point. I was worried they would kick us off. Nope, no problem. The modeling agencies, that's been the big one. There really hasn't been another. We have not had supply chain issues. Now, we are producing primarily in Peru. They 1000% agree with us. And, they don't even understand why it's controversial, honestly. They're like, I don't get
It's that scene in Matt's movie. Where he goes to the tribal Africa, and they're looking at who are these stupid white people? Yes, right. What a bunch of primitives. Yes. All right.
I tell my team every time, you have to tell them what this brand is about. We can't have them bail in the middle. They need to know up front. I'm not trying to trick everyone. So we have a whole opening salvo that we give, and they're all like, what's your point? Of course we agree. That's ridiculous. So yeah, we haven't. That is encouraging.
Well, right? we're in the middle of Christmas shopping season. I don't care what Todd says. Christmas has started as far as I'm concerned. So
it is.
If people are looking for any gifts, where would you have them go for the website, Jennifer?
Go to thetruthfits.com. That's our website.
That's a great name for a website. Wish I thought of that myself. The Truth Fit. You should be like a brand manager or something. That's really good. Easy to remember even. TheTruthFits.com is where you want to go. That's The Truth Fits, put the in there. TheTruthFits.com. Again, TheTruthFits.com. And, thank you. for bucking trends and being willing to stand up for what you believe in. And it's great to see that that's being rewarded now. That gives a lot of people encouragement, Jennifer. So God bless you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for all you do, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Take care. All right, gentlemen, your thoughts on that conversation?
Well, listen, this wasn't just a housewife with nothing to do. She was a CEO with one of the quintessential major American companies, all right? And she said, the truth matters more than risking that. And she's absolutely right. And a lot of the anon-cons, I swear, their biggest excuse, I have a job, I have to support, Guys, the truth is always worth it. It's always worth it. She gets it. What's your excuse?
Yeah, amen. And I would extend a thank you to Jennifer as well. I mean, she is the embodiment of what are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to lose? She sacrificed and she still stood tall, and she's standing tall now. And I hope and pray that this venture is successful, not only for the truth behind it, but also just as a brand that it continues to grow and grow. But I think she I love the way that she started out, which was do not get complacent. Do not get complacent. That should be everybody who is to the right of Bernie Sanders. That should be your mantra. That should be your middle name. Because I'll tell you what, the left never plays defense. They never play defense. They are always on offense. That's how they think. That's how they do this. And so we're not going to be in a good place, I would say, just speaking for myself, we're not going to be in a good place on this issue until it is embarrassing to the point of life-ruinous rhetoric.
Correct.
To state out loud that men can be women, that boys can be girls. We're not going to be in a good place.
It has to be stigmatized, is what you're saying.
It has to be stigmatized to the nth degree, which it was at one point, what happened? But it has to be stigmatized, absolutely. So there is no final victory when it comes to the leftists, to the communists. There's no final victory over them. It's only a victory in as much as it spurs more people to action, spurs more people to shirk off the cowardice, spurs more dads in the cul-de-sacs, in the suburbs to say, no, I'm not going to fall for your emotional blackmail, blue hair. I'm not going to fall for that. Be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed.
Jennifer and Aaron, you guys might have inspired me. How about a new shirt over at the Blaze Shop? Make social stigmas great again.
I'm in.
What do you think?
I'm in.
Make social stigmas great again. All right, back with Hour 2. We're going to play some Idolatry or not. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I am Steve Deace, and you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also, please, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then also, if you're a podcast listener, thank you. Hit subscribe. Or in the case of iTunes, follow. And that'll make sure that every time we do put out one of these new episodes, it's right there in your podcast feed every single time. And then if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review. The more of those we get, the better the show does. And the more our egos are boosted. And I think I speak for all of you that you would like to see our egos even more robust than they currently are. I could certainly... I'm in for an ego boost.
That's probably the biggest compliment you got down on the range there. Your egos are outstanding.
Indeed. And thank you to all of you that have left us those 5-star reviews already. We appreciate them all. I want to go back to something we just heard from Jennifer Sey a minute ago. We cannot get complacent. All right? And so, I sat here watching what was going down in North Carolina a couple of months ago, and those poor people there in Western North Carolina are still not back to normal, even though it's largely forgotten now by most Americans because life goes on for most people. But that prompted me to get a hold of My Patriot Supply. And I got their water filtration. I got the 3-month emergency food kit. So I know what you're thinking, man. You're breathing the free air again, King Theoden. Now is actually the time to get the people to Helm's Deep. All right? All right? When you can peaceably move, okay, from one place to the other is actually now the time to prepare. Do not get complacent. Listen to what Jennifer Sey just said. All right, so get your 3-month emergency food kit like I did from My Patriot Supply. It comes with breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks, the full complement of the 2,000 plus calories a day that you need, just in case. Come on, man, that's never going to happen here. Happens here again. All right. Food stays good for up to 25 years. It ships to you fast and free with a discount if you get it at my landing page, preparewithdace.com. Go to preparewithdace.com. Make sure you're ready now. Now is actually the right time, okay? This is now when Joseph says, "Hey, I am making sure we are storing up the grain for the drought, for the famine that's inevitable to come in the future. We're going to be ready and prepared for it." So now is actually the time when you have the time to get prepared at preparewithdace.com. Again, head over to preparewithdace.com. All right, at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk about what's going to end up being one of the biggest television events or digital or streaming events of the year. It's going to end up being the second biggest sporting event in America, other than the Super Bowl. And that's the fight that occurred on Netflix over the weekend between, he's kind of, before he was a boxer, this is not my generation, so forgive me, Aaron, it's yours. Before Jake Paul was a boxer, he was like a viral YouTube sensationalist kind of thing, right?
Yeah, he and his brother, I think it's Logan Paul.
Okay.
They were both YouTube vloggers.
All right.
And before that, because this thing is going on, and one of my daughters is texting my wife, and she says, "That's the guy from Bizaardvark."
Bizaardvark? What is Bizaardvark?
Do you know who? Well, she's a popular singer now. It's Nickelodeon. Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh, yeah.
They had a show called...
I don't know much about her. I just know that my youngest daughter, Zoe, loves her.
There's a show called Bizaardvark, and she was one of the child actors on it, and so was Jake Paul.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit like Ryan Reynolds? Do you remember the show 15 on Nickelodeon was just terrible? They attempted to do like a teenage soap opera kind of thing. Do you remember this?
No.
We used to watch it constantly just to laugh at it and mock it, like Mystery Science Theater. The show was and they
you realize the microphone's on, right? Just.
I didn't say we were watching Degrassi High and taking it seriously. Okay. It was called 15. It was terrible. It was very obscure. But Ryan Reynolds got his start on that show.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Todd's like, I'm hetero. Anyway, what were we even talking about? I completely forgot before I completely made a fool out of it. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Yes.
This all stemmed from a boxing match.
I asked a question I should not. I should just stick to the boxing. All right. So he was an internet sensationalist, viral thing before he became a boxer, and he got to live out the Will Smith song. I think I can beat Mike Tyson. At least I think I can beat 60-year-old. He's 58. 60-year-old Mike Tyson. So we're gonna talk about that for Pop Culture Tuesday at the bottom of the hour. But let's begin with Idolatry or Not post-election edition. And I thought I would take some things that I have posted, either shared and or responded to on X, which is the biggest aggregator of political content in America. This bastion of right-wingism, which, by the way, the exit polls are showing if you were an X consumer, it was pretty much 50-50 if you voted Republican or Democrat in the election. I just saw an exit poll data on that a few days ago. It's because you got all these lefties. I was listening to a Detroit Lions podcast that I love. But what a bunch of slurping betas, okay? They decided to open up their post-game podcast after the Lions beat the Jags 52-6 with a scoregami. You ever heard of a scoregami?
Yeah.
It's when a score's never occurred in that sport before.
No.
It's called a scoregami, all right? And so this was the first time in the NFL that a game had ever been 52-6. Never happened. History of the NFL. The score was 52-6. It was a scoregami.
Statistic, but
you know,
they know it.
And you know I love meaningless stuff.
But that's not slurping. That's the definition of sports, bro.
Correct.
That's him.
No, the slurping is what I'm about to say comes next. Okay, I like stuff that would just used to win me sports bar bets. I just like stuff like that. All right. In this case, these guys decide to spend, so the team's doing great, best Lions team of all time, and they want to make sure that they're considering moving from Twitter to Blue Sky.
Yeah.
This is an interesting phenomenon.
And I'm listening to this on a gun range in Texas, doing a workout, a push-up squat workout from my cottage. I'm listening to this, and I probably can't say to you guys on the audience what I said out loud, but in response, just reflects. I'm like, what a bunch of. Just said it out loud, just reflexively, like it just felt like my T level dropped even hearing this. And then we might leave. We're sticking around. We're seeing, what? I mean, what a bunch of slurping betas! Goodness gracious. 50-50, a real debate. Now everyone gets to say whatever they want, and everybody gets to fact check everybody if they want. That's now bias, and that's now bigotry, and that's now white nationalism. What a bunch of betas. None of these guys have ever been punched in their lives, I promise.
Did I see this correctly? That reports of child sexual abuse material has skyrocketed on Blue Sky?
Why would that not shock me? Why would that? Have you guys seen people that are righties are now creating accounts to go on Blue Sky and see how long they get banned? They're just, what's Jennifer Sey's website? The Truth Fits. So they're .com for her clothes, right? They're just going on Blue Sky and saying objectively true things. Men cannot menstruate, and just seeing how long their
didn't Megan Basham do that? Sweet little Megan Basham.
Okay.
I think she did that.
Because I saw a ton of people do it over the weekend. Yes.
It is a fascinating phenomenon. It's like the intersection of attention seeking and fragility all at one little intersection.
Yep.
It is fascinating.
Well, I got to thinking, I'm mocking all this. I should put myself up to the same standard, right? Okay. So am I an idolatrous slurper? Is what I'm posting idolatrous slurping? Or is it just funny? Is it just, is it nothing? All right. So I'm going to let you guys hold me accountable to the same standard I'm holding others. Fair?
All right.
Well,
we'll see if it's fair if I have a job after the end of this segment. I don't know.
You have permission to be as honest as you want as long as you don't hurt my feelings. How's that?
Okay.
How about thetruthalmost.com? The Truth Almost. Is that good?
Just remember Donkey from Shrek. Only a true friend would be that truly honest.
That's very right. There's a Bible verse there, right? About what the wounds of a friend cut deep, essentially. All right, let's start with this clip. Watch this.
A lot of little people don't like me because I say the word midget. I got protested at one of my shows. 22 little people showed up with the picket signs. They weren't picket signs, they were 3x5 cards. But they were there. And here's the craziest thing. They walked up to me and they said, Brad, when you call a dwarf a midget, it's the exact same as calling a black person the N-word. And I was like, midget, please.
All right, what do you think?
That's not idolatry. Why? What context would that be?
I just wanted.
You just wanted to
play that clip.
All right. I like where your head's at. This segment's going to go just fine.
I was just looking for what excuse could I find this week to randomly insert this clip, and so I came up with this entire segment just so we could play that one clip. Yes.
And see, you know who thought that was funniest? The black guys.
Yes.
They're rolling over.
Yes.
That's great. That's healing.
Were we a better country when we said things like this and mocked each other to our faces and didn't take each other seriously than what we are now? Yeah. Where sanctimony is always on the menu. When were we a better country, healthier country, do you think? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When we had release valves where we let some of the steam out in situations. Doesn't mean, by the way, we had civil rights abuses. We had high pressure water hoses on black people on the nightly news. I'm not making it look like these were always the salad days and these were the days of sinlessness. I'm not saying that. I'm not buying into that level of nostalgia. My point is, though, we weren't sanctimonious wimps.
Yes. I mean, this clip has got to be, 20 years old probably?
Yes.
Somewhere around there.
Yes.
We went from that, maybe 20 years ago or so, to now Seth Moulton, a Democrat congressman, just simply says, I don't want my daughters to get run over by dudes.
Right.
And he immediately, within like 24 hours, is met by a mob of orcs outside of his office demanding that he retract his statement saying he doesn't want his daughters to be harmed. That's where we went.
That clip you just played, forgive me, that's 20 years old?
Yeah, that's
probably.
Yeah.
It's got
That's pre-HD.
See,
yeah.
That belies, that's a nice footnote you did, and a respectful one, but also not necessarily, in so many ways, we were already there, folks. The place that you orcs think we have to arrive at, we were already there within the confines of what human frailties will allow us to get to. My goodness. I can't believe I've never seen that guy. So 20 years old already?
It's got to be,
Yeah. Different country.
Yeah.
I mean, we have literally lived through in our era, and it's why I believe there's two reasons why our Generation X was the only one that voted for Trump. And to be fair to the boomers, it was like 1 point. Okay, so a lot of them did. But the only generation that definitively voted for Trump was ours. And it's because for two reasons. One, our kids are old enough now that they're about to go out into the world, or we've got grandkids coming into the world as we speak. And then two, we grew up in a world where things were like this. We had deep divisions. We argued. Okay, we had great debates. We understood there needed to be places where it's what has Jason Whitlock said that a healthy culture allows the pastor or the priest and the comedian or the court jester to say things to them that can't be said anywhere else, to avoid taking themselves seriously and receiving truth they need to hear. Right? We were the last generation that grew up where that still occurred. We had deep problems. All right. I mean, everybody was, we had access to porn on VCR tapes and everything else. These weren't, the salad days of sinlessness, and we're all reading Rainbow and tiptoeing between raindrops and walking on water like the Apostle Peter with our eyes on Jesus. We're not saying that. What we're saying is there were still some common understandings of we have to have systems, acknowledge we're sinners. We have to have systems that get around those. We have to punish sinners. We have to put criminals in prison. Democrats actually had crime bills, okay? And there were release valves where the pressure was let out. So like moments like what you just saw on camera, we did those things still. We're the last generation that saw that.
We had already arrived at, in many ways, you do you, my truth and things like that, but the rules were like, but you might get laughed at for it.
That's right. And you might be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's okay for me to say, your truth sucks, and even mock you for it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, next. This was a tweet I received, post. I keep calling them tweets. Received over the weekend. RFK Jr. capitulated when he agreed to sit for this photo op showcasing McDonald's artery-clogging food. RFK Jr. is in no way going to touch the president's COVID response. I cannot tell you how many of these I received from humorless scolds, just refusing to just take, it's a photo op, it's a troll, okay, etc. All right, but maybe they're on to a level of discernment now that because of my orange man slurping, I'm no longer capable of just letting true people of principle down all over America. So idolatry or not, gentlemen, your thoughts?
This is the response is total idolatry. It's funny. It's funny. It's the look on his face is funny, huh? Okay, repeat after me. If you think this photograph is indicative of some major plot or a backstab in the backs of everybody who is supporting RFK Jr. Okay, repeat after me. Ha, 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 ha. That's called laughing. That's called laughing. It's okay to laugh sometimes. Ha, ha. You can do it faster and faster. That's called laughing. So it's I don't understand. This is what you were not there for overtime on Friday. There are a lot of people. There are like 3 lanes of people I see on social media who are just back to business as usual. In the one lane, and I'm sorry, I know what happens at the overtime, but I think this is germane to this conversation. So papal or whatever dispensation I'm giving myself here.
Granted.
Thank you. There's one lane of people who are in the, Morning in America crowd. That's what you have been talking about, Steve. That everything, we're back into the halcyon days of America. No, we are not. There's another lane. This is like the Mitt Romney-esque. This is the moderate GOP. This is the politics of 20 years ago GOP, who just think that we're going to chuck shots, chuck peanuts from the cheap seats and say and nitpick on this and that, and you can't pick Matt Gaetz because obviously he's guilty of sex trafficking, as if Kavanaugh doesn't exist. And then there's a third lane of people that really drive me nuts now. And that is the nothing good comes from Nazareth crowd that are just a problem in search of other problems, basically. I'm sick of it. You're beyond unhelpful, beyond irrelevant. But at the same time, if you would actually just allow yourself to not have your brains broken, just take a step back, stop posting about everything, and just see how this plays out, you might be right in the end. You might be wrong, but be open to one of those scenarios, because right now it just seems like there's a lot of people who fit into this vein that just want failure. And I'm not here for it. Not here for it.
You're also just a damn liar. Like, you think you found the Zapruder film of evidence for something? Listen, I'm the OG anti-vaxxer, all right? Listen to me. Big Macs are delicious. I love them. Can we make the ingredients better? Should you not eat them every meal? We can have those questions. Do you really? This is the math? You have to think that a Big Mac is simply like kryptonite in order to do anything about vaccines? This is stupid. You're either stupid or a liar to try to push that math on me.
We're doing something different, because I grew up watching people eat Big Macs all the time, and they weren't 350 pounds. We're doing something different. Maybe it's a lack of discipline. We're eating too many of them. That's possible. Rather than like once a week for Friday night, hang out after a game or Friday night football. Maybe it's the frequency of it. That's possible. That's a factor. But we're doing something different, because I grew up watching people eat this stuff all the time, and they weren't morbidly obese. So something different's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next one. We won't play the clip because we're probably going to be in YouTube fair use if we actually play the clip. So just put the tweet out there. Aaron.
I grabbed the clip.
Okay, that's right. We'll play the clip then. And
I
then,
don't think we're going to get into trouble for this.
Okay, all right. Here's the next one. Watch this.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion,
and you
mass
get the gist.
Okay. What do you think? Idolatry or not? Look at Todd's face.
I know.
That's disgusting.
How could they? Have you guys seen the picture? It's a file photo of I don't know who it is. Is it Chamberlain? I'm trying to remember. Somebody sitting down with Hitler in a room, and it's pictured Joe Scarborough's first meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. All right, your thoughts, Todd?
This is what I'm talking about when your narcissism is not the same thing as principles. Of course, this is idolatry, and their self-importance is the idol. Just a couple weeks ago, it was worse than Hitler. And now you're hunting him down to meet with him. Just an absolute joke. Listen, of course, do we have to put grace, forgiveness? Yes, we must absolutely live by all that. But I don't know. This is not an honest broker. This is not somebody who's repenting. That's not what that is. That's a scam, is what that is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that is idolatry, obviously. This is what it is more than anything, I think, is that Joe and Mika have an amount of contempt for their audience that maybe even surpasses the establishment GOP's contempt for their own base.
Didn't they just out themselves as crisis actors, basically?
Yes.
Yeah.
They think that you are so dumb.
Well,
I'm sorry.
to be fair.
Their audience. They think their audience is so dumb, like they're so dumb they can't even get out of bed in the morning.
Well, I mean, they do work from home,
yeah. Well,
in other words, they know their audience is what you're trying to tell us?
In that case.
That's what Jennifer Sey was talking about. They're good at this. They know their audience and they know how to and she's absolutely right. And as I said, a couple months ago, no matter who the party is, the gender, whatever, 90% of all people ultimately are sheep. They just want to follow. They want to be told where to go. Yeah. It doesn't matter what. We're talking about sports. We're talking about politics. We're talking about religious things. It's just like, I don't want to think about this. I just want to be one of the cool kids.
One of my favorite lines from Augustine: "There are many sheep without, many wolves within."
Yes.
Yeah. All right. This next one
I did just grab screenshots for because we will get dinged for
this. All right. And so this is players black and white this last weekend. Calvin Ridley for the Titans, Brock Bowers for the Raiders, Zadarius Smith and Malcolm Rodriguez. So we have a Hispanic and a black man for my Detroit Lions, all doing the Trump dance on camera after big plays during NFL games the first 2 weekends after the election. What do you think? Idolatry or not?
Is this not humiliating to the left? Is it not humiliating?
Which is going to tie directly to what comes right after this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Tay endorsed Kamala after the debate. If you would have told me that Tay endorsed Kamala after the debate, and then however many weeks later, 9-10 weeks later, we would be seeing multiple athletes across multiple sports. Christian Pulisic, one of the captains of the U.S. men's national team. Sorry, I'm ducking now. One of the captains of the U.S. men's national team. He was doing the Trump dance, I think, last night. Mm-hmm. If you would have told me that 10, 11 weeks ago, I would have said, "What are you smoking? I want some of it." I mean, there's a possibility that maybe a lot of these athletes just saw the dance on TikTok or something like that.
And they want to go viral for their own accounts.
Have no idea what the origin of the dance is. That's a possibility. I don't think that's the case, but good grief. That's not nothing. Again, reiterating what I said before, it's not nothing, but it's only nothing if Trump's mandate is not acted upon.
Because we're running short on time and these two go together, before we go to you, Todd, let me bring in part 2 of this. This is Bridget Fettice's kind of the comedian version of Jennifer Sey that we just talked to last hour. She started out on the left and then realized these people don't want to believe in truth. Okay, so she's somewhere, in the ether, of the right of center sphere, similar to Jennifer Sey. Fair? Mm-hmm. All right. She posted John Jones doing the Trump dance after he won his heavyweight title fight with UFC, and then gave the belt to Trump there ringside. But I love this observation, Todd. I want to get your take on it. The freak out you're seeing from the left with the Trump dance going viral is not about the dance. It's about the fact they're losing their long-held monopoly on being cool. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely true, but again, I just got done talking about being cool, being in the popular kids class. Oftentimes, it's not worth it. You're not, you're just a sheep. You're not truly seeking out the good, or the true, and the beautiful. I will give the mixed martial arts crowd. Yeah. Deserves way more credit for authenticity than any of the NFL crowd on this front.
Correct.
They've been way more out front on all this when times were hard. Yep. The football crowd has been taking all kinds of knees and everything with COVID. This is what the idolatry to me is, the comfort. It's easy. It's easy now. That does not impress me. Where were you when it was hard?
Aaron, let's skip the parody one from Real
Really?
Doge. Let's throw it up there. We got to throw it up there. All right. This is another one that has no point other than I just wanted to figure out how to insert it into the conversation. The NIH spent $442,000 to discover the behavior of, or study the behavior of male prostitutes in Vietnam. That won't happen again under Doge, and Lindsey Graham never reported back with his findings. That's tremendous.
I can't believe you wanted to skip that.
I know. It's Christmas.
I did.
All right. We got to get this one in. All right. Look at this one here.
Hi, I'm Admiral Rachel Levine, and we're here talking about food is medicine. I'm so excited to speak with Leah Pryor, executive chef and founder of the Culinary Medicine Program at the University of Vermont Medical Center. Tell us what people should know about your model and maybe how other medical centers could replicate your model to help people.
So when I think about how we can move the needle, I really like to think, how do we get that into the hands of the practitioner? So right now, what we are really focusing on is we're focusing on building curriculum for our School of Medicine, for our School of Nursing, as well as dietetics, health coaching, and basically any type of clinician or practitioner who can use this tool. So when I think about, plug and play programming and talking to other universities and other healthcare kind of organizations, I really see it as the way we make actual change. We have a chef educator, which I am one myself. We have a registered dietitians. We have relationships with PT and OT, and we also have a garden educator who is a horticultural therapist. So when you look at that team, you really see all the scopes that can really help people get to their optimal health. We have all of these programs like shared medical appointments where we work with a doctor.
All right. That is from an X account called Being Libertarian. That they posted that in response to those who question RFK Jr.'s credentials to be the head of HHS. I thought that response, just posting that video as responding to those people, I thought was perfect. But what do you guys think?
It is perfect, but amongst a citizenry who is actively engaged in their duties as a citizen, you should not need to have it unrolled for you like this. Which is why there's so much more work to do. Your schools, universities, your medical professionals are being run by people who should be your baristas. And this has been going on for a long time. How did it get this way? See, it's an obvious...
Not that there's anything wrong with being a barista, but that's like an entry-level job that, you start out with, not a place that makes you qualified to run the country.
Here's the point. You're getting to something very deep, though, and profound. It's an obvious response to the folly of, okay, how could he be qualified? They all got to those positions, though, when it was equally as obvious, and you did nothing.
Correct.
That's my point. Yep. It can't just be obvious when it's funny. Get to work.
The Trump campaign commercial, which I love. Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you. That's not the end. That should just be the opening volley. Okay, rhetorically speaking, for Media Matters stenographers, rhetorically speaking, that tactic should be hung around the neck, rhetorically speaking, of anybody who wants to mess with this madness. Rhetorically speaking.
Amen. In these unprecedented times, make sure you've got a real estate agent you can trust. Help you navigate. We are still in the midst of the Let's Go Brandon real estate market. You need a trusty guide, and we're going to help you find that person at realestateagentsitrust.com, where the name says it all. Where can I find an agent I can trust, Steve? At realestateagentsitrust.com. Just literally go there. All right, these are agents that we have vetted before we recommend them to you. They are based all over the country. A lot of times they are from right here in the same audience of The Blaze as you, so there's a lot of times going to be a common value system that you can trust in as well. So whether you want to get across the country or you're just trying to get across town, we want to make sure you get across the finish line, and we've got the agent to help you get there at realestateagentsitrust.com. The name says it all. Whether you're thinking about buying or selling a home or both, get in touch with them at realestateagentsitrust.com. I don't know if you guys saw this parody post from over the weekend, but this was incredible. And I also did a spit take when I saw this. Breaking: Jake Paul challenges Lee Corso.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these.
Oh, were there like a run of these memes?
Yes,
okay.
there were.
This one though. Gosh. Oh man, this one made me. I don't know why this made me laugh out loud. Okay, and I've done a whole 180 on Lee Corso a few years ago on game day. I'm like, this has to stop. The dude can't talk. And then I realized that the Grinch's heart was 2 sizes too small. And I'm reminded of Joe Paterno and Bear Bryant died like months after they stopped coaching, and that show, he made that show. I mean, Lee Corso made College Game Day. And what else at 80, what is he, 89 years old, I think now, and they don't put him on there that often, but it's a good way to keep him engaged and honor him. And, you know what, I've done a total 180 on it. Now, I hope he's able to play some role there until the Lord calls him home.
I totally agree. He's the most honest thing about that entire enterprise. I mean, he's part of the era when we understood sports was about life, and now we think life is about sports. I'd rather listen to Lee Corso than anything Pat McAfee has to say. Pat McAfee is sports pro incarnate, and it's ruining everything.
So, of course, this meme we were just sharing with you is a parody of what happened over the weekend. This is going to be, I think it's the biggest event Netflix has ever produced. It'll be.
Did they produce it though?
Well, yeah. Oh. Well, that's what we're going to discuss. See what you did there. Okay, it's going to be the second most watched sporting event in America this year, other than the Super Bowl. Back in February. Over 60 million households tuned into this. And so, that's going to be, over 100 million people, because it wasn't just sitting there with 60 million people watching it by themselves. I had not watched a boxing fight from start to finish in I don't know how long. I think the last time I ordered a fight pay-per-view was when Tyson bit off Holyfield's ear. So was that 96, 97, somewhere in there, right? Maybe even earlier than that. But I did, we got done out there at Patriot Academy, and I'm sitting there in my room at 10 o'clock. I got nothing else going on, trying to get to sleep. So figured the whole world's tuning in. Let me watch what's going on. So I watched the entire fight. You guys have had a chance, you guys watched it as well, or at least parts of it?
I just watched enough clips to understand. So I thought that Jake Paul took it easy on Mike Tyson. I think Mike Tyson came out the first 2 rounds and tried to charge him right away, and then ran out of steam. And I think that that Jake essentially had a combination of, I don't want to knock this guy out, number one. Number two, because if anything, that might actually make the thing look more farcical that I'm able to knock out Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? And then number two, though, I think the concern, and this is why I thought Tyson was still going to win, despite the age difference, is that power. His legs are not even what they were a few years ago when he fought. Was it Roy Jones? They did that fight during COVID. I didn't watch, but I think that's who they put together during COVID as a sporting event, right? I seem to remember that, yeah.
So his legs might not even be what they were 5 years ago, but all that upper body strength is largely still there. It may not be as toned as it was when he was 25, but that power, much of that power is still there. And if you're Jake Paul, you might be doing great. You might be winning this entire thing, and you take one false step, and the old man's got you from a shot that you don't get up from.
He's 60, he's not 90.
Correct.
I mean, he could knock out still 99% of the men walking around just by looking at him.
Right. And so I thought between those two things, we largely got kind of the highest paid, highest compensated cardio workout in the history of humanity. I think Jake Paul made, $40 million? Tyson, I think, made $20 million.
That's what DraftKings
is saying.
Network, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So those were kind of my thoughts. I'm also fascinated how much this captured way more people's imagination than I thought. And maybe I should not have been surprised. We're talking about an icon from our generation, and then social media icons from Aaron's generation. So there's the generational play there too. But what were you guys' thoughts watching it?
Well, that's part nostalgia, but the other part regarding our imagination is our imagination currently sucks and has very, very low standards. I mean, let's face it, they're trying to gain whatever foothold and traction they can for a sport where the love of has largely moved on to mixed martial arts. Mm-hmm. I know there's good boxers, still doing the craft and anything like this, but this is a joke. It's why I didn't watch it or wasn't interested in it. I mean, we need to set the bar higher on everything. Certainly in the sports world, but again, I believe this is important in the sports world because sports is about life and not vice versa. This is not edifying. People should ask for more. They should resent the fact that you can be so easily manipulated, and you can, and they know it. Just like Jennifer Sey said, we're talking about the exact same thing. Ooh, Jake Paul and an old Mike Tyson. We used to demand better, and we just don't anymore. So you get this.
There was just something odd to disturbing about this entire event. Number one, this is not Netflix's first foray into live programming. There's a show that my wife likes that did a final episode. They promoted it big time. It was supposed to be a live series finale and exact same issues. Nobody could watch it. And so they clearly have not gotten things. And by the way, this is coming from somebody who, I mean, what did I tell you? 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks, the breaker has been flipped for some reason here in the studio, and it's messed up a bunch of my equipment. So I'm no stranger to technical snafus, but we're not a multi-billion-dollar company or whatever Netflix is here in this studio I'm talking about. So they clearly haven't gotten that figured out. To the extent that they did, I was able to watch it live on my iPad, but not on the Roku's. And they did the interview with one of the women who had won the fight. And just the juxtaposition of this bleeding, just bludgeoned woman standing in the foreground with the kind of over-the-top, hot ring girls in the background just smiling as she's like obviously in a lot of pain. That was really odd, and it's like, does nobody see this juxtaposition here? And finally we got to the fight like 4 hours after they advertised it, or 3 hours after they advertised it, and I felt like Jake Paul, yes, took it easy, but I felt like Mike Tyson kind of held back too a little bit. I don't know. It was just, here's what was weird. The glitz and glamour, the people sitting ringside, they paid like over $1 million for those seats. This was watched by hundreds of millions of people. It just felt very Hunger Games-esque. I'm sorry.
Okay. Since you brought that up, that's a great segue to something I want to talk about here in a minute, after we first tell you about the final partner today, American financing, because today's economic environment is still really stressful for a lot of us. But with the Fed finally dropping rates, there is no better time than now to put you and your family in a better financial position. If you're a homeowner, American financing is helping thousands of families just like you who have been putting everyday expenses on credit cards get out from underneath that debt by tapping into your home's equity. American financing is saving their borrowers over $800 a month on average. I mean, that's almost like a $10,000 a year raise at work, and it costs absolutely nothing to find out how much you can save. They are closing some of these loans in as little as 10 days. And if you start today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment just in time for the Christmas shopping season, by the way. So there's no better time than now to turn your situation around. Call today, 888-675-4090. That's 888-675-4090 for American financing. Again, 888-675-4090, 888-675-4090, or go to AmericanFinancing.net/Deace, AmericanFinancing.net/Deace.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
So Sylvester Stallone knows a thing or two about boxing theater, right? I mean, he's essentially cornerstoned the industry, right?
He's the godfather.
He is. Okay. He posted this earlier today on his Instagram. Just to set my personal record straight, business is business. Sometimes you have to do some things you have to sacrifice for the sake of helping your family. I've known this unbelievable athlete since he was 19, and what we saw was him giving one of the great Oscar performances of all time with not one, not two, not three, but 4 exclamation points. And Sly is saying that it was actually Tyson taking it easy on Jake Paul, not the other way around, which was my impression watching it live. He contradicts that and saying no. Him just kind of standing there, moving, his feet are back and forth.
I didn't even read this before I grabbed this.
So you had no idea what I was, because I teased it to you before the break that I wanted to bring this in. So you didn't know what Sly was going to say. But what Stallone is saying is he thinks it's the other way around. He thinks that Tyson was actually the one that was play acting here, thought it wouldn't do him any good. He got his $20 million payday by showing up, training hard, so he looked like he was taking it seriously. He looked like he was a boxer still. Went in there, didn't want to knock the kid out, make himself look bad, and got his $20 million payday, and he's good until his end of days, and that's what Stallone is claiming. What do you think? I
mean, there was one jab that Tyson got early on in the fight in the first few rounds. That was you could tell Paul was stung, but Tyson didn't try to do this. He just wasn't very aggressive this match. So I don't know if he felt like he had to go all 8 rounds in order to get the paycheck, because we don't know the details of that for sure. It's DraftKings Network. Estimated that the earnings for Paul was going to be $40 million, $20 million for Tyson, but it was just not very aggressive on Tyson's part.
What do you think, Todd?
Either way, it's all cherry, girl. None of this is any different than like some 65-year-old woman who's still wearing mini skirts and going out clubbing. I mean, this is the most honest people in this whole thing either way are the two fighters who know they just stole from you. This was not legitimate from the get-go. It's like utterly obvious. None of these, we just have to expect better. We have to. And the sports bro world is full of suckers, and you just proved it again.
Do you view this as our era's version of Billie Jean King and was it Bobby Riggs? Okay. And this is, before my time, but this was the battle of the sexes. Bobby Riggs was in his 40s, 50s, chain smoker, claimed that he could beat Billie Jean King, went out there against the greatest women's tennis player of that era in her prime and got beaten soundly. And the fact that she was able to beat a guy 25, 30 years older than her or what have you was considered some great victory for women's sports, when I never have understood that my entire life. How is beating a man that, has way more salt than pepper or left in his hair, and you're the prime. I would take it as insulting, actually. Beating Bobby Riggs was somehow a great statement about women in sport, given the age difference between the two. But that it was considered that at the time, and much mileage was given to that at the time. Are you saying you kind of view this in the same vein?
I don't. Well, Bobby Riggs. It didn't prove anything.
Let me look up how old he was.
Bobby Riggs just had it coming. He was just a jerk about that whole thing, and on purpose, and that was kind of his shtick. It was just about, like, specifically, Bobby, I'm going to shove this down your throat, and he got what was coming. I don't know. Are any similar lessons learned through this?
So Bobby Riggs was the number 1 tennis player in the world in 1946 and 1947. He was the number 1 tennis player in the world. All right. And so when did this match with Billie Jean King happen? In the 70s. So it would have been 30 years after he played, right? 1973. So, yeah. 30 years after he was the number 1 player in the world is he was 55 is when he took on Billie Jean King. And somehow her ability to beat a 55-year-old man, so not about the same age as Tyson, he's 58. So her ability to beat a 55-year-old man was considered to be, and she won like 6-2, 6-1, it looks like straight sets. It wasn't even close. That was considered to be a great victory for women's sports, beating a guy who was closer to AARP than playing professionally.
But there is real antagonism and antipathy there. Like the slap that happened on stage. Anybody... Like, ooh, wow! This is intense.
So you view this as pro wrestling, where the action is real, but the outcome is scripted, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't believe like this was. Did anybody feel for a second?
So it was a Netflix special, is what you're saying?
Did you think he was going to like bite off Jake Paul's ear again or anything like that? I mean, that Tyson in that world is long gone.
What do you think, Aaron? Scripted?
I think so. Which is what disturbed me about this. All of the money and glitz and glam, just about something that was not real. Are there some parallels there? Because I don't think that fight was a real fight.
But it's not an exception. It's the rule. Why does Sports Bro look? You know what they resent more than anything? The actual games. I've been talking about it all week, Steve. I've been telling you exactly what to do. The betting lines are this. Why didn't you meet my expectation? They resent real life. They want the script. They want it to go exactly like it happens in their imagination. This is perfect. This is not an exception. It is just like a lot of the Sports Bro world that Sports Bro has come to demand. They're voyeurs. They want a soap opera. And they got it.
So back to the Riggs Billie Jean King comparison I tried to make. There was at least a greater point about that soap opera. This was just soap opera for the sake of soap opera, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we're going to see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.